Forget the legends. Forget the tales of glorious last stands and honorable deaths. Dying on a medieval battlefield was nothing like the songs. It wasn't clean. It wasn't heroic. It was slow. It was filthy. It was horrifying. When steel clashed against steel and thousands of men charged into battle, most didn't die from a single sword stroke. They died screaming. A crushed rib cage from a warhorse's hoof, a gut wound left to fester in the mud, a shattered jaw, blood filling the lungs with every gasping breath. The stench of sweat, blood, and rotting flesh soaked the air. Men slipped on entrails, rats appeared before the priests, vultures circled before the fighting stopped, and when the battle was over, the wounded were left behind. There were no medics, no mercy. A knight might spend hours, sometimes days, lying alone in the rain, watching the sky grow darker as life drained from his body. This is the truth that history books often avoid. Death in the Middle Ages wasn't a quick end. It was agony drawn out in mud and silence. The initial charge itself was a maelstrom of terror. The ground would tremble under the thunder of hooves and the rhythmic, ominous tramp of thousands of feet. The air, thick with the scent of fear and unwashed bodies, would be rent by the guttural roars of men, the blare of trumpets, and the chilling shriek of arrow. For the common foot soldier, often poorly equipped and barely trained, this first collision was a moment of profound existential dread. The tightly packed formations meant little room for maneuver, only the crushing press of bodies, the desperate struggle for air, and the inevitable impact. A spear thrust from the front, a sword slashed from the side, or the terrifying descent of a battle axe from above could end a life in an instant, or, more often, begin a slow, agonizing descent into oblivion. Wounds inflicted in medieval combat were, by modern standards, catastrophic. Steel, designed to rend and crush, found its mark with sickening efficiency. A sword, even if blunted by armor, could deliver a concussive blow capable of shattering bone, leaving limbs useless and bodies broken. Arrows, particularly bodkin points designed to pierce mail, could penetrate deep, carrying fragments of clothing and filth into the wound, ensuring a swift and agonizing infection if the initial impact did not prove fatal. A man might fall, not dead, but screaming, an arrow protruding from his gut, his life slowly ebbing away as the chaos of battle surged around him, indifferent to his suffering. The fortunate few might receive a quick, merciful blow to the head or heart, their world simply winking out. But for countless others, death was a drawn-out affair, a slow bleed, a fevered delirium, or the chilling onset of gangrene. The battlefield was a sensory overload, yet within it, individual suffering often went unnoticed. The cacophony of battle, the shouts, the groans, the clang of steel, the thud of bodies would drown out the pleas of the dying. Smoke from burning villages or siege engines would sting the eyes and lungs, mingling with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smell of sweat and fear. Visibility was often poor, adding to the disorienting terror. A soldier might fall, trampled underfoot by advancing comrades or retreating enemy, his last breath a gasp of dust and terror. Others, pinned beneath fallen horses or entangled in the bodies of the dead, would lie helpless, their cries unheard, their fate sealed by the relentless tide of conflict. The psychological toll was immense. Men fought not just for victory, but for survival, their minds teetering on the brink of madness amidst the carnage. Armor, while offering some protection, was no guarantee of safety and often contributed to the grim reality of death. A knight, encased in steel, might be invulnerable to many blows, but a well-aimed strike to a joint, a visor slit, or a blow that buckled the plate could render him helpless. Once unhorsed, a heavily armored knight became a vulnerable target, often unable to rise, left to the mercy of foot soldiers who would exploit any weakness. The weight of the armor itself could be a death sentence. A fallen knight, unable to move, might suffocate in mud or drown in shallow water, his expensive protection becoming his tomb. For the less fortunate, the sheer weight of their dead or dying comrades could pin them down, leaving them to expire slowly, crushed and forgotten amidst the anonymous heap of bodies. The aftermath of battle was often as horrifying as the fighting itself. As the victorious side celebrated or the defeated fled, the field became a grim charnel house. The wounded, if they were lucky, might be found by their own side and dragged to makeshift aid stations, though medieval medicine offered little beyond crude amputations, cauterization, and the application of herb. Infection was rampant, and a minor wound could quickly become a death sentence. For the vast majority, however, there was no aid. They would lie where they fell, exposed to the elements, their agony prolonged by the cold of night or the searing heat of day. Looters, often camp followers or impoverished locals, would descend upon the dead and dying, stripping them of anything of value: armor, weapons, clothing, even teeth or rings, leaving the bodies desecrated and anonymous. The final moments for many were spent in isolation, staring up at an indifferent sky, their thoughts likely turning to loved ones left behind, to a life unfulfilled, or to the eternal salvation promised by the Church. The fear of an unconfessed sin, of dying without last rites, and thus facing eternal damnation, was a profound terror for many devout medieval men. Without a priest to administer absolution, the spiritual fate of the fallen was a source of deep anxiety. Their bodies, stripped bare and often mutilated, would eventually be piled into mass graves, indistinguishable from friend or foe, their individual identities swallowed by the earth. There were no elaborate funerals for the common dead, no markers save for the occasional cross or cairn. Their sacrifice, if it could even be called that, was often forgotten, their names lost to the annals of history, a stark contrast to the celebrated heroes who survived. Dying in medieval battle was a grim testament to the fragility of life and the brutal efficiency of human conflict. It was a death devoid of the romanticism often ascribed to it, a cold, painful, and often lonely end. The battlefield was a crucible where courage and terror intertwined, but for those who fell, it was ultimately a place of finality, where the grand narratives of kings and kingdoms dissolved into the silent, forgotten suffering of countless individuals. Their stories, largely untold, serve as a stark reminder of the true cost of medieval warfare, a cost paid not in glory, but in blood, pain, and the quiet, unremembered passing of life, in unimaginable physical and spiritual pain, and in the quiet, unceremonious passing of life, leaving behind only the cold, hard ground and the indifferent sky. Forget the legends. Forget the tales of glorious last stands and honorable deaths, the shimmering banners, the heroic charges, the clashing steel echoing with the triumphs of valor. These are the gilded fictions we often cling to, painted across the vast canvas of medieval history. But to truly understand the medieval battlefield is to strip away the romance and confront a brutal, chaotic, and profoundly anonymous reality, especially for the countless souls whose lives were extinguished upon its blood-soaked earth. To die in medieval battle was not merely to cease breathing, it was to embark on a terrifying, often prolonged journey through unimaginable pain, primal fear, and utter dehumanization. A stark, unceremonious end, far removed from the heroic ballads sung in distant halls.